This week, we're learning about bow ties. I've always wanted to learn how to sew, work with fabric. I don't really know how to do any of those things now, so it's going to be a week of a lot of different skills. So first thing I need to go get a sewing kit. I need to get some fabric. I need to get some interfacing, which I don't really know what that is yet. I think that learning how to make a bow tie will open up a whole area of things to learn, since it'll teach me how to work with fabric, how to sew things together. It should be kind of fun. I don't have a sewing machine, so I'm going to sew this by hand, and if I'm any good at it or I like it, I think I'll go get a sewing machine and try some other stuff in the future. So we'll see how it turns out. All right, so time to go do our shopping. Ooh, it's starting to get cold in South Dakota. So first, let's go through the materials we had to get to do this. First thing I got was a sewing kit at Walmart. 10 bucks, seems like it has everything I need in it, so that was perfect. These are the cutouts I'm using for the bow tie. I got these from sewlikemom.com. That'll be source 1 in the description below. The next thing we have is what's called non-woven fusible interfacing. And what it is you put it on fabric to give it more kind of sturdiness. It's used in collars, cuffs, waistbands, pockets, it says. The last thing I got here was fabric. And so I got some polka dots, I got some stripes, I got whatever that design is called, I forget. I got some zigzags, and I got some little squares. So I got just kind of a variety of fabrics that I decided to use. This purple one here was the cheapest, so I'm gonna give that a try first. And it's also my least favorite. And this, all of this fabric together was 5 bucks. So pretty simple. It takes a 1/4 yard of fabric to do one bow tie. At least that's what the instructions say. I forgot what size my neck was. So if you find a shirt that fits you, it's the first number. Mine is 16, so I have a 16-inch neck. So I have this thin plastic cutting board here that I'm going to place under this so that I can mark this out with a pencil so that I have a nice flat surface to work with. So this little blue pencil came with my sewing kit, so I'm going to try to trace this out with it, trying to be as straight as possible. This isn't working so well. I have some X-Acto knives from a past project, so I'm going to see if that won't work a little bit better. See if I can just cut it out. It's not really working either. Okay, so what I found out would be easiest is to tape this piece together, this stencil. I decided to use a different fabric because this purple fabric is really thin and it's really hard to mark with a pencil. I tried pinning it, it didn't work out so well. So I'm going to use this thicker fabric on the back side because the other side is, the right side. And I'm going to use just a black colored pencil and trace it out and try that. All right, that seemed to work a lot better. So all you got to do now is cut it out. So now I just need to do that 3 more times for the fabric, 2 times for the interfacing. Okay, now that we have all 6 of those pieces cut out, what we're gonna do is attach this interface to the pieces of fabric. Set the iron on steam or wool setting. Which side of this do you attach? Place coated side of interfacing down. Which side is the coated side? One side of this is a little shinier than the other. One side feels like cloth and the other one kind of feels almost plasticky, like it might be glue or something. So I'm going to assume the plasticky side is the side that needs to go down. So that's what I'm going to do. Things don't match up perfectly, but I think that'll be okay. So that's about as good as it's going to get right there. It says to use a dry, lightweight press cloth. I'm not exactly sure what that is. So I am going to just use an old white t-shirt that I have. I'm going to lay that very carefully over the top of this. I guess you're not supposed to move the iron back and forth like you normally would. You're just supposed to press it down for 10 to 12 seconds. Just keep going down until you've done that to the whole thing. Iron's warmed up, we're ready to roll. So about 10 to 12 seconds on each part of this should be enough. It's stuck almost everywhere except for a couple of spots. So it is the shiny plasticky side down, that's good. So I just got to touch up a couple of spots here on the tips of the fabric here, and I should be done. Should be good. Okay, so now we need to do one more. So what we're going to end up with is 2 pieces that have the interfacing on them and 2 that don't. So we're going to just do the other one quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so now what we do is learn how to sew. I watched a video. I've never sewn anything before. I watched a little video on YouTube about how to do it. I'll put that link in the description. Hopefully I can get this figured out. But what I need to do is take these 2 pieces here that have the interfacing on them and overlap the 2 with about a quarter of an inch, and then sew those 2 together and then repeat it for the other side. Okay, now that we got that part done, what I've done here is laid these out face to face. So the outside towards the outside. Sides that are going to be facing out are going to be against each other, because what we're going to do when we're done sewing this is flip it inside out. So what I need to do now is pin it along the tie so that it stays in the place where we want it. Okay, so now that we're done with that part, we have it all stable, pinned all the way down the tie. What we need to do now is sew along the entire outer edge, leaving a quarter inch between the outside and where the thread is going to be. And the other thing before you get started is to leave a 2 or 3 inch gap right here at the center where you don't sew on this side, because what we're going to do is when we flip the tie inside out, it'll all go through that hole. So you need to leave a spot open right there, and we'll sew that back shut later. Now would be a good time to have a friend that has a sewing machine. I can't get a hold of anybody right now that has a sewing machine, so I'm just going to hand sew this thing for the next few hours. All right, so check back in with you then.
1 eternity later.
So I just got all the sewing done, and that took forever in my insert. What we need to do, as you can see, I left this gap open right here, about 2 or 3 inches. Now what we need to do is these corners here, we need to cut off the corner at this angle here. Just like that. Do that on each one. Now that we have the corners off, all we have to do is kind of pull this apart a little bit and try to get this to go through inside out through that hole we made earlier. This might be a little tricky. I'm going to be using a flat Phillips screwdriver to push it through there. What would work best, I've read, is a chopstick, but I don't have any chopsticks, so. Just to be safe, I'm going to take some tape and put it on the end of this screwdriver so that it's not so sharp. I don't want to push through the inside of that. Now, using that same hole, what you do is you put your screwdriver in through the middle to help push out the corners that might be a little bit difficult to get pushed out, like up here. Now, lay it out on the seams. Once you get them pulled out, make sure they're out as far as you can get them, and then we're going to put the iron to it and iron it a lot to get it flat. Okay, so all we need to do now is sew up our hole here and we should be done. Okay, I have to go use an actual mirror. I am really happy with how that turned out. I know my tying skills need a little bit of work, but yeah, so the benefit of doing this way, instead of just buying one, well, I think good ones like at Men's Warehouse are 30 or 40 bucks, but the nice part about doing it this way is that you can make it out of whatever fabric you want to. Yeah, if you have any kind of fabric you see at the store that you think would make a cool bow tie, you can make one super easy for next to nothing. I think if I were to do this very frequently, I would get a sewing machine because the sewing around the outside took a long time. But other than that, man, this was a fun project, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Well, that'll do it for this video. We'll see you next week.